Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Leach. I am the Chief of Government Relations and Advocacy at the National Brain Tumor Society, and I would like to welcome you to the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs FY23 overview presented by Dr. Donna Kimbark. Dr. Kimbark currently serves as the Health Science Program Manager of the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs, the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command. She received her PhD in molecular pharmacology and cancer therapeutics from the SUNY at Buffalo and Roswell Park Cancer Institute. And following postdoctoral training at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Kimbark worked in the biotech sector, where she promoted from field scientist to account manager and then program manager. She joined the CDMRP in 2002. Her ability to balance responsibilities led to her assignment as program manager for several other programs, including autism, multiple sclerosis, kidney cancer, bone marrow failure, melanoma research programs. Currently, she leads the Peer Review Cancer Research Program, a multi-cancer topic program with $130 million fiscal year FY22 appropriation. In addition to her program management duties, Dr. Kimbark leads the research security team at the CDMRP to ensure the protection of intellectual property of the United States from foreign interference and influence. Her awards include the Commander's Award for Civilian Service and the Civilian Service Achievement Award. Dr. Kimbark has received the Innovation Award from the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs for her work on webinars and outreach, and I can attest to her collaborative nature and her outreach efforts with the cancer community to ensure the success of this program. And we are so honored to have you, Dr. Kimbark, here today to work with us to learn more about this program.
Thank you very much, Danielle. It's always a pleasure to be here at the National Brain Tumor Society and to do this webinar for you. So let's get started, okay? So let's go to the next slide.
Yep. Hold on. Trying to move it there. Okay.
There you go. Get it. Okay, so I'm just going to ground everybody in what the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs is first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Peer Review Cancer Research Program. First of all, the CDMRP, as we lovingly call it, has a vision of transforming healthcare through innovative and impactful research. How do we do this as a research administration funding organization? Is by responsibly managing collaborative research with the 3 Ds: discover, develop, and deliver healthcare solutions for service members, veterans, and the American public. Let's go to the next slide. Lots of people want to ask, why is the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs, why is it under the Department of Defense? What does this have to do with anything? It's very confusing, right? So let's talk a little bit about how it all started in 1992. 1992 and 93, there was an appropriation for women's health, specifically for breast cancer, because breast cancer advocates went to the Hill and really asked for a change in how research funding was done and decided upon, and they really wanted a voice in it. So Congress appropriated money to the Department of Defense's appropriation, and since then it has been like a tradition that each year Congress does appropriate money for the CDMRP. They established the CDMRP in 1993, and they have been appropriating money for breast cancer and other programs throughout the years. PRCRP started in 2009. And as I said, our big focus is funding innovative and impactful biomedical research. But why do we do this? We really are doing it to accelerate that research to advance cures and improvements of people that might have injuries or diseases and so on. And we really want those breakthroughs for our service members and their families. We fund research across the world. And a lot of people ask me, how is this possible and all that? It is because that we are able to fund across the entire world, and we do allow that. How do we decide what's going to be funded and what's not going to be funded? We use a 2-tiered review process that includes scientists, clinicians, and consumers or patient advocates with a full voice in the process. So that's how we do it. But I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth in that in a little bit. So let's go to the next slide. So let's get into the peer review cancer research program. I think this is really the meat of where you want to be. Right now, you came for the peer review cancer research program. So let's talk a little bit about it. As I said, it began in fiscal year 2009 with an appropriation of $16 million. There is congressional language that specifically says what topic areas like brain cancer or pediatric brain tumors will be included within the peer review cancer research program. From fiscal year 09 through 22, we've had nearly $8 million appropriated and over 900 awards made. For fiscal year 23, we've $130 million, and that's to be determined how many awards are going to be added to that list there. And so will more brain cancer awards be added? So that's really up to you and how you're going to apply. Some things I want to point out here is you should spend some time on our webpage. The URL is right there. Just like if you are going to apply for a job, you should really spend some time learning about the program. So spend a little bit of time learning about the program. On that left sidebar, you'll see news and highlights, and those highlights are research that we funded in the past. You'll also see our program book on the right-hand side with our strategic plan and so on. Scroll down further and you'll find that, scrolling down further, you will find the YouTube video that's a 5-minute video that you can find a little bit about our vision about the PRCRP and learn a little bit about what that vision to advance mission readiness for those in the military affected by cancer really means. And our mission is really to successfully promote high impact cancer research and prevention, detection, treatment, quality of life, and survivorship for service members, their families, veterans, and the American public. I just want to point out here that this is public purpose funds, so we are allowed to fund across the world and for the American public. Let's go to the next slide. So as I said, PRCRP is a multi-topic cancer research program. You'll notice that some cancer programs that you might associate with CDMRP, like breast cancer or prostate cancer, are not listed under the PRCRP. That's because those topics like breast cancer, kidney cancer, lung cancer, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, rare cancers, and melanoma have their own standalone programs. And as their own standalone programs, they are not eligible for peer review cancer research program funds. We can see that there are multiple different cancers here that are available and that are eligible, I should say, for peer review cancer research funds, including brain cancer and pediatric brain tumors. I want to point that out. Even though some of these might be rare by definition, they are still allowed to be funded because of the fact that they are named under the PRCRP. Research must be relevant to service members, their families, veterans, and other military beneficiaries. Let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about that. When you talk about relevance to service members and their families, you really have to wonder how will we do this? People often ask me, what is a specific cancer for the military? There is no specific cancer to the military. So keep that in mind, okay? We're really talking about how military service, like environmental exposures that you might be exposed to during military service, or occupational exposures that might lead to the development of cancer either in the short run or long run. So we're really looking at those risk factors that are military health risk factors. Another military health focus area that we have is mission readiness, because you can imagine that a cancer diagnosis in service members or their families may lead to forced vulnerabilities. What I'd like to say is that if one person gets cancer, the entire family gets cancer. And if you can extend that outward to the entire unit, a military unit would then get cancer because of the fact that that service member is incredibly important for that unit's success. So any gaps in cancer research or healthcare really are going to affect mission readiness. So this is something that we really have to pay attention to, and that you as an applicant will have to answer under our military health focus areas. Let's go to the next slide. So in order to in order to answer some of the cancer capability gaps that might be present over these 20 different topic areas, we have overarching challenges. And our overarching challenges are split into two different types, either research gaps or patient outcome gaps. Here we have our research gaps that we have prevention, diagnostic, and treatment categories. Prevention might be including elucidating the mechanisms underlying cancer development to improve prevention methods, or diagnostically develop and improve minimally invasive methods to detect cancer and cancer initiation, progression, and recurrence. And then we also have treatment and overarching challenges there. We have 4 of them, but they could include transforming cancer treatment, especially for advanced diseases and metastasis. So let's go to the next slide. The cancer capability areas, overarching challenges that we have for patient outcome gaps are included here, patient well-being and survivorship, as well as disparity. These are very important for us to pay attention to because it's not only about research, but it's about the patient. And so we really want to bridge those gaps between treatment and survivorship and include how neurocognitive deficits or long-term treatment effects might affect quality of life and how we can support them. We also want to look at disparity. Advancing health equity and reducing disparities in cancer care through research is incredibly important. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the PRCRP and brain cancers, specifically brain cancers and pediatric brain tumors. The Department of Defense, we just had a study that came out just recently where Air Force had the highest rates of cancer in the military, and ground crews, which was shown that ground crews had a 19% higher rate of brain and nervous system cancers compared to the general population. For all cancers, the military generally has a lower mortality rate than the general population, and that's probably attributed to the healthcare system. Just a few other things that I want to point out is that we do have some information here that you can use. The study compared cases from the ACTHER and SEER, which is the general population. And here we are seeing a significantly better overall cancer survival rate with the military than in the general population. And this, once again, is probably attributed to the healthcare and access to healthcare. So from fiscal year 09 through 21, I want to just point out how much money we have invested. From fiscal year 09 through 21, pediatric brain tumors came and went a couple of times. So it's not thorough all the way through FY09 through 21, but we have made 52 awards there and almost $30 million in investment. In FY17 through FY21, brain cancer has been included under the peer review cancer research program, and that's 36 awards that we made and about $25 million. So a total of about $55 million for that span up through 21. Through 22, we did exceptionally well for pediatric brain and brain cancer. I also included the pediatric, adolescent, and young adult topic area because we did have a couple come in under that topic area that are linked to brain cancers and pediatric brain tumors. So we have all of that plus our consortium development award that we funded in FY22 does include brain cancer as one of its topic areas. So a sum total of about $30 million, almost $32 million added to that $55 million. So that's about $86 million in neuro-oncology that we have funded from the get-go. Let's go to the next slide. So the major areas of investment that I'm really going to talk about are what in that box there. We're really going to talk about supporting research towards fielded science. And what is fielded science? We want something that's going to touch patients. So that doesn't mean that we're going to completely abandon a discovery-based research, but we want an entire spectrum of research funding. Let's go to the next slide. When we look at the supporting that research spectrum, Our FY22 investment strategy includes multiple different areas to fund, okay? And you have to choose the right funding opportunity. As an applicant, really strongly suggest you spend some time figuring out what the best funding opportunity is for you, because not all funding opportunities are alike. For instance, under the basic and applied hill there that we have are the IDEA Award and the Career Development Award. These are very early on type of award mechanisms. They are lower dollar amounts. These are not what you would call RO1s, for instance. These are really the type of award mechanisms that are going to generate preliminary data. And then when you move over to get to that next hill of applied and translational research, you're really looking at the Impact Award, and the Impact Award can actually move over into that hill as well. But it is a bridge between basic and applied and translational, because we're really looking for continuity of research and preliminary data here. When we get to that applied and translational research area, we're looking at the Translational Team Science Award. The Translational Team Science Award is especially important because it kind of, it's the middle hill. So it's going to the laboratory as well as to the clinic, bringing important information from the clinic back to the laboratory and then back again to the clinic. So that's what the Translational Team Science Award is all about. I do have an award mechanism there actually circled or boxed, and that's the Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award. We found that our portfolio really wasn't covering that survivorship area, and we really wanted to focus down in on that. We used the Behavioral Health Science Award previously, but now we've changed that to the Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award, really to open it up to more people. And then finally, we have our brand new award mechanism, the ACT Award mechanism, also known as the Advancing Cancer Care Through Clinical Trials. And this is a clinical trial only award mechanism, really trying to get to that standard of care, fielded science, something that's touching the patient ASAP. Let's go to the next slide. So here are our funding opportunities, all listed out with some more information for each one of them. But what I really want to draw your attention to, and I think that your attention is probably already drawn to it, are those stars. We have 3 stars on the ACT Award, which is the Clinical Trial Award, on the IDEA Award, and the Impact Award. Why are they starred and not the other ones? These are starred because if you look at under the deadline dates, we have pre-apps due on the 25th of May. You have a little bit over a month to get your pre-application in here. These are pre-applications that actually need to apply at the pre-application stage. And what you're applying for at the pre-application stage is an invitation to apply at the full application stage. So those are what those stars mean. You're applying for that invitation. The other ones need no invitation. The Career Development Award, both the fellow and resident option, and the Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award, and the Translational Team Science Award, they need no invitation. So they are just going to be a letter of intent. That's what we call it. It's a little bit different than how the NIH names things. So the nomenclature is a little bit different here. The letter of intent is just going to be a letter. I'm a fellow. I'm going to apply to the fellow option for the Career Development Award. I'm applying under pediatric brain tumor, and that's all. And that's due on the 25th of July. And then you don't need an invitation for that full application. You just go ahead and submit that full application by the 10th of August. Let's go a little bit more in depth with some of these. So let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, I'm going to go over the invitation required. What you're applying for as that pre-application stage is that invitation. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what that full application is going to be about. So the IDEA Award and the Impact Award, that pre-application is going to be a 1-page pre-application. Okay, going to be very simple, very straightforward about what you're going to do, your experimental design, some specific aims, and what the impact is going to be. That these will be screened, and you will get an invitation to submit if you're one of the ones that are deemed that you're following the intent of the award mechanism. Now, when I say that, the intent of the award mechanism for a specific reason, like the IDEA Award, preliminary data here is discouraged. Okay, you should not be submitting preliminary data at the IDEA Award stage. The reason being is this IDEA award is not a retooled R01. Okay, this is a award mechanism where you can get your wildest dreams, your innovative ideas, put them down, and then you're going to generate that preliminary data so that you can then get an R01. So that's what this IDEA award is about. It's basic, high risk, high gain research. Independent PIs with a faculty level appointment are eligible here, and it's $400K over 2 years. It's not a lot of money. That's why it's not an R01K. Oh, sorry, an R01. Okay, it's not an R01. Okay, it is not a lot of money for those 2 years. So the impact award, on the other hand, is more advanced. We actually allow clinical trials here. If you want to bridge the gap further than just that second hill, you're going to do that clinical trial, okay? You're going to do preliminary data is required here regardless. The reason why preliminary data is required here is because we're looking for continuity of research with an emphasis on near-term impact, either in the research community or in the patient community. So you're really looking for that and pushing the field forward here. So that's what the impact award is about. Preliminary data is really important here. Delineate the difference here between these two, IDEA and impact. There is a big difference. Here, the assistant professor or above or equivalent are allowed here, and it's 1 million over 3 years. Now, the impact and IDEA awards, that pre-proposal, that one-page pre-proposal, so you can get your invitation to submit the full application, is at 25 May. It's due the 25th of May. You'll find out whether or not you've been invited by the 29th of June, and your full application will be due on the 12th of September. Now for the ACT award, which is our clinical trial award, a single clinical trial award. Now the impact award does allow clinical trials, but this one is just a clinical trial. That's all this is, okay? So the pre-application is a 3-page pre-application. So you're gonna put in a little bit more work and in-depth information here. The preclinical data is required for the full application. A clinical trial is required. There will be no preclinical projects moving up to and getting you set up for the clinical trial. That is not allowed. That's not allowed, okay? Because the IND and the IDE submission must be by the time of the application deadline. So you're not going to be prepping to get that at this for this. This is a clinical trial. This is money for a clinical trial. So it's assistant professor or above or equivalent are eligible here, and it's 3 million for 4 years, for up to 4 years. The pre-proposal is due on the 25th of May, so it's a short timeline here. The invitation is 29 June, and the full application is due on the 27th of September. So let's go to the next slide. Now, the next slide really covers your letter of intent opportunities, right? Here are your letter of intent opportunities. Here are the ones that you don't need to have that invitation to submit a full application. Your letter of intent is due on the 25th of July. Your full application is due on the 10th of August. So you can start writing right now. Okay, right now you can start writing. But remember, on the 25th of July, put an alert on your phone and remind yourself to apply with that letter of intent. We have four different opportunities here, or levels that we can go over. The Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award is a retooled behavioral health science award. It's really about quality of life, preservation of function, dealing with those neurocognitive issues and long-term side effects that can come from having brain cancer or pediatric brain tumors. This is for an independent investigator, and it's 1 million over 3 years. Now, the Translational Team Science Award's been with us for, gosh, I think it's been 8 years now. So it hasn't really changed that much. We do have a clinical trial option here. It is allowed. A clinical trial is allowed. So you might be having an associated clinical trial that you'll be paying money funding, or completed clinical trial. You don't need that because of the fact that you have a repository of those clinical samples, and you're going to be doing correlative studies. This is at least 2 to 3 PIs at the level of assistant professor or above. coming together with an intellectual stake in this study. So this is 2.5 million over 4 years. Now for the Career Development Award, I want to caution you that when you go and you look on grants.gov and you're looking for the Career Development Award resident option, you are not going to find that. You're going to find the Career Development Award. You have to open up the funding opportunity to find the two different options, but I've separated them out here for ease of understanding. So the fellow option is really for scientists or physician scientists within 7 years of their terminal degree. Preliminary data here is not required, but remember, if you do submit it, it will be evaluated. Here we're trying to support early career investigators towards further independence. So we'll see people with a moniker of research assistant professor, instructor, and so on. So many times they don't have independent laboratory space. So that's fine. That's fine if they don't have independent laboratory space. We're really trying to boost them up to move forward into their next phase of independence. So this is really for $400K over 3 years. Now for the resident option, this is for residents that are in an accredited graduate program to participate in research. Preliminary data here is not required again, and it really does support 2 different research levels. And the work should be performed between approximately June 2024 through 2026. Research level 1 is $200K over 1 year. Okay, and what we're really looking for here is exempt studies. So you're really not going to be able to have enough time to get animal approvals or, any type of IRB approvals. It really should be exempt studies. It really is just touching research and understanding research and how to do hypothesis generating information and studies. And research level 2 is a $400K over 2 years. It's very much like the fellow option. So it's kind of like married up with the fellow option. Here you can do expedited studies and animal studies. So let's go to the next slide. So where do you find all these funding opportunities? You find them in grants.gov. You can look under the assistance listing or the CFDA of 12.420. If you do that, all of the CDMRP program announcements are going to appear. And you're going to say, oh, where is the PRCRP ones? I can't find them anywhere. Go to April 4th. That's when we submitted and we posted on April 4th, so you can easily find them. Now that you can also go to the CDMRP website, just as easy to find the program announcements. And also you can go to our electronic biomedical application portal or EBRAP. You're going to need to know that EBRAP in and out and backwards and forwards, because that's where you're going to submit your pre-application or your letter of intent. So ebrap.org is really your friend. So you should get to know it very well. Get a portfolio together. Let's go to the next slide. How to apply for funding. I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth in this. It's really about understanding the program goals. So that's why I told you to spend some time looking at the website so that you know what the program goals are and you know what we like to fund. Know your focus areas, your overarching challenge, and how it moves together with what you're going to submit, and the award intent. And what I mean by that is an idea award is basic. An impact award is much more further along on the research spectrum. Pay attention to the eligibility requirements and the review criteria. I'm going to talk about the review criteria in just a little bit, but the deadline is very important as well. Deadlines are very important. And you're going to say, oh, I don't remember exactly what the deadlines are. Don't worry, they're on the very front cover of every single program announcement. Let's go to the next slide. These are the program cycles. The funding opportunities were released on April 4th. Your pre-application receipt is either a letter of intent, which is the 25th of July, or the pre-proposals, which is the 25th of May. So you want to get those out right away. The pre-application screening and invitation to submit, those will be reviewed by the programmatic panel. So spend some time learning who the programmatic panel is, and I'll go over that in a moment. And your invitation to submit that full application will be put out by the end of June. And then your application receipt will depend on whether or not you had that invitation to submit or the full application, or the letter of intent, I should say. Once that happens, we have our two-tiered review process, the peer and programmatic review, which I will go over now. Next slide, please. So the goal of the two-tiered process is really to fund the most meritorious science and to fulfill the programmatic goals. Our peer review itself is a criterion-based evaluation of the full proposal. It's really important because of the fact that we don't have study sections like the NIH. I put together my peer review panels on a yearly basis. The reviewers are recruited on a yearly basis. And that means that when you are applying, you should say that you're going to select brain cancer as your topic area. Don't make sure that you don't make a mistake and scroll and do bladder cancer, for instance, by mistake, because it really will determine what topic area you have will determine what peer review panel you're going to sit on. So that's really important. And we do review at peer review towards a gold standard. We don't do comparison studies at peer review. We do it at programmatic review. At programmatic review, they're going to use the summary statements from peer review that have the numeric score and the strengths and the weaknesses. And they're going to do that comparison review. And how they're going to determine it is really going to be based on the adherence to the award mechanism, as well as program relevance and potential for impact. I want to point out, like, for instance, if you have a brain cancer study, and it's scored slightly lower than, for instance, a blood cancer study. It's scored slightly lower, but the blood cancer study kind of phoned in the military health statement, while the brain cancer study put together a really, really thoughtful one. That could be the difference between which one's going to be funded, because we do not have a pay line here at the CDMRP. So let's go to the next slide. The peer review criteria is a really interesting part of the program announcement. It's written in all the program announcements. You can take a look at it. And I often tell people to use it as your checklist, because the application package itself has all kinds of attachments. And those attachments I use those attachments, I use those words to come over and plop them in to the peer review criteria. For instance, to what degree the PI's career goals demonstrate a strong personal commitment to achieving an independent career at the forefront of cancer research. I would have, in the directions of what you're looking for in the project narrative, I would have said, describe the PI's career goals and how they demonstrate strong personal commitment to advancing an independent career at the forefront of cancer research. So you can see that if you go through every single peer review criteria and you check mark that you have covered it in your different attachments in the application package, then you are decreasing the number of weaknesses the peer reviewers can actually point out. So let's go to the next slide. So programmatic review criteria, as I said, really is important to really understand program relevance. I pointed out the importance to the military health focus area. It's also important to pay attention to the overarching challenge and cover that as well. Remember, portfolio composition is important. So if you hit every single one of these, you have a higher chance of getting funded. And the programmatic panel membership lists are available on the website, and you should not be putting any of the programmatic panel members on your application. And I'm going to go over that in a moment, in a couple of slides. Let's go to the next slide. So some strategies to answer challenges, always plan ahead. Deadlines are important, okay? Keep those important deadlines and bring your team together early. Clearly define your team's skills as well as your intent and how those team skills are going to work together to get your anticipated outcomes. Dissect that funding opportunity and understand it. I often say, oh, this is the one time that you can go ahead and sacrifice a tree and print it out and really rip it to shreds and get to understand it really well. If you have any questions, you always can go to help@ebrap.org in order to get some of your questions answered. A clear voice is incredibly important. Forget the jargon. If I have a 10-word sentence and 6 of them are abbreviations, you're going to tire the reviewers. And tired reviewers are reviewers who are not going to completely understand what you're trying to get at and therefore may not be able to give you a great score. So you really want to increase your chances. by using a clear voice. And I said here, use the verification period. We don't have a grace period, but we do have a verification period for specific attachments of your application package. And I told you how to use the review criteria. I do want to say on this slide, cool science is good, but in fact, impactful science is great. Make a point to tell us how your science is impactful and how it's going to change patients' lives. Let's go to the next slide. Now, the pitfalls that I've seen in the past is people including the panel members. I want to point out the third panel member down is Dr. Clark Chen from the University of Minnesota. Do not put him on your application. I've seen multiple people put him on their application, and therefore their application must be rejected. We do not allow that, okay? So pay attention to people that you're putting on there. Any of these people that are on this list should not be included in your application. That's really an important part. Don't exceed the page limits. I think that's fairly simple. And grants.gov, once you submit it, it might take up to 72 hours before it's validated and before you can see it in our eBRAP portal. And that's important to note, because once you can see it in our eBRAP portal, you can actually use a verification period, which is after the deadline. So about a week after the deadline, you have some time to take a look and make sure you have the right SOW, the right the biosketch and so on. So don't ignore that verification period. There are two parts of your application that you cannot change during the verification period, and that includes the project narrative and the budget. So make sure that those are correct before the deadline. Let's go to the next slide. So this is just once again a snapshot of our different funding opportunities with the ones that are starred that will tell you they require an invitation to submit that full application. So that pre-application, that's what you're trying to get, is that invitation. So let's go to the next slide. And I'll take any questions at this time.
Okay, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and or put it in the chat and we will share with Dr. Kimbark. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Will a recording of this talk be available later?
Yes, it'll be recorded and put on the NBTS website, and we will share the link in a follow-up email that similar to the one that you just got announcing this webinar.
Thank you.
I have a question. Shoma Senkupti here, brain metastasis, okay for this programmatic announcement?
Can you clarify where it's metastasized from?
Lung to brain.
Unfortunately, no, because it is considered a lung cancer in the brain.
Got it.
There is a question in the chat, Dr. Kimbark. It says, I wonder if a company is eligible to apply.
Yes, they are. We are more than welcome to go ahead and apply. Just make sure that you go to sam.gov and put all your ducks in a row as far as applying to a federal entity.
Another question came in and says, is resubmissions allowed? Do we have to inform of the previous submission?
You do not have to inform of the previous submission. In fact, we don't take resubmissions. You can submit an application that you didn't get funded on before, but you don't have to say we're resubmitting this and this is what we changed. You just take that summary statement and use it as your guide to fix your application.
Okay, another question is, for Career Development Award fellow option, can postdoc or staff scientists apply?
Postdocs cannot apply. Staff scientists probably could apply, but not postdocs.
Okay, another comment was gastrointestinal stromal tumors is part of the areas of interest to CDMRP? GIST tumors?
Just tumors. I mean, I think it would be, and I do want to point out, and this is something I forgot to say, is that you are also allowed to submit to the Rare Cancer Research Program. So I mean, that just might actually be better at in that program rather than the PRCRP. But I'm sure that we could, if you take a look at the award mechanisms, that we could probably accommodate you as well.
Are there any other common questions, Dr. Kimbark, that you haven't heard today that might be helpful?
Some things that I've heard that some people ask is whether we fund internationally. Yes, we do fund internationally. We are open to all international, researchers, either as a collaborator or as a prime person that might come in. I'm just flipping through some of my notes here to see if I can find any others. Lots of eligibility questions. I think that we've answered some of those already. I did have a question about if somebody is at one institution and they want to submit an idea award, but they want to work with somebody that's at another institution. Yes, you can do that, but you just bring that other person in as a sub-awardee or a co-PI. It doesn't really matter.
Terrific. Is there any other questions from the group?
Could I ask what fraction of funded awards actually have a member of the military as part of the grant application?
Very small. Very small. You do not need to have the military population for the PRCRP. It's not a requirement. It's always nice if you can get that, but it's not a requirement because all people get cancer.
No, but I mean like an investigator who's part of the
military.
Yes, like
we have a small number for PRCRP. We have larger number in some of the other programs that CDMRP manages and executes, but we have a small number, I'd say a handful for PRCRP. A lot of the people come in as partners on the Translational Team Science Award.
Okay, thank you.
Next question is, what sort of % of the submitted applications get awarded, particularly for the Career Development Awards?
The Career Development Award, I'm going to tell you, we have some of the best numbers there. Career Development Award can be upwards of 25 to 30% of those get funded. I mean, the Idea Award is probably our lowest at around either 10 to 12%. But for the Career Development Award, it's usually upwards closer to 30%. And like the Translational Team Science Award sits up between 25 and 30% as well. And I just want to make one more point that for the Behavioral Health Science Award that turned into the Patient Wellbeing and Survivorship Award, that one has a fairly good rate as well. I think that's somewhere around 15% or something. I don't quote me on that, but it's pretty good. We don't get a lot of those. And so I'm really hoping that more people come in.
And the impact, just to complete
the Impact Award. The Impact Award is, I'm thinking it's probably around, because we get a lower number of those than we get from the Idea Award. So that's probably around 15%.
Okay, and then I had one last question, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to, I think you'll be able to answer this, but you mentioned before that this year has been the highest rate for brain tumors of success. What do you think led to that success of those applications that were submitted?
I think that the NBTS had a really good push out for that. I think that it really is, are you going to, back in the day, the New York Lottery used to have this saying, you got to be in it to win it. Okay. And putting together a really thoughtful application with answering all the little key points that I talked about, you know, spending time looking, making sure that your peer review criteria, whether you've answered all those peer review criteria to decrease your weaknesses, because we don't want a whole slew of bad applications. You want those good applications. The more good applications that rise to the top and that are thoughtful in their military health, I think that really does help move the field forward and to get the brain cancer and pediatric brain tumors funded.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kimbark, today. We really appreciate it. Again, this webinar will be is recorded and will be shared via email with the community again. And we encourage you to contact Dr. Kimbark with your questions. She's incredibly helpful and throughout the process, and we look forward to seeing what the results are next year.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Good
you so
luck.
much.